All right, guys. So here is our podcast for today. It is April 9th, 2020. I have I'm Mr. Calica, we got Mr. Uson and Mr. Oliveros. So we're just gonna have a quick little podcast, talk story about what's happening around us and it's kind of how everything's going with school, whatnot. This remote learning, this is kind of a new thing, yeah. So how's everything going with you guys?
We're doing good. PLC, algebra PLC, math PLC is doing very good. We have enrichment that's going on for our students. They're not required, of course, but for the enrichment activities, they have to do maybe an assignment every day. So it's
Yeah.
keeping them busy.
Oliveros.
Yeah, kind of the same here. I have IT core and then my Auto 1, Auto 2, which has the same curriculum, and then my auto body classes. Um, for IT core, I had to dip into this textbook that I wasn't planning to use from 1996. So it's actually, yeah, here. Can you see it?
So
Pretty
it's pretty
awesome.
OP too, man. That's like this old stuff.
I know. This is we didn't even have IET
Oh,
we had like Vika, right? We didn't have IET when I was in high school.
yeah. Oh, that's right.
This this is the book we would have used if we had one. So um,
So
I mean,
here's the big question is, do you have students that are doing work? Because right now, I think that's the biggest struggle is maybe like, there's no incentive for them to do their work, right? So everything's optional, especially for, I think, me and Mr. Oliveris is, we're elective courses, right?
yeah,
So at this point, it's like, why? I think a lot of students are thinking like, I gotta do the work if it's not graded, right?
right.
So have you guys been running into the same trouble, Mr. Wusan?
Yeah, for algebra, it is a required course, and there are freshmen. So I want to say about 50% of the kids are doing um, are doing assignments, which is really exciting. They're motivated. I would like to say they're motivated, but from my experience of teaching freshmen, also a lot of it is parents that are telling their child almost to keep up with the assignments that your teacher has. In fact, I got an email from a parent that said, "Hey, Mr. San, is there something that my child could do?" In fact, I got like three emails from three parents that said, "What is your plan that you're planning to do during this time off?" And so, Algebra PLC was very busy with being proactive. No, not really proactive. It was more so being reactive. But the math department in general was um, had a good plan, and we put that in place. So
Right on, right on.
50%, it's not the
I'm
best,
sure.
definitely, but kids are doing it.
I mean, that's pretty good though, 50%. I'm sure a lot of it's too like the parents don't want them to fall behind next year, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they don't want
that's
to be like, oh, these kids don't know nothing when they go to, what, Alge 2 or
geometry.
geometry, right?
Geometry is next. So yeah, that's something that we're gonna have to figure out. I'm sure sometime in the curriculum of teaching geometry, cover topic. We have to cover quarter four topics, things that just the kids aren't doing. Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah,
we make sure that we're up for the challenge for that, and it's going to be interesting.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, so I guess, well, this might transition us into the big discussion is when do you guys think we're going back? You guys, well, I know for Mililani, we're doing remote for the rest of the year, right?
Right.
I think Fred said that, right?
Yeah,
So
pretty much. So
then,
what the state Department of Education is saying is they're gonna wait until we have 4 weeks
that's right.
of no new cases.
Uh,
Supposedly the peak of um what we have here following the what happened in Italy or what happened in Tokyo, what happened wherever else. Peak is supposed to be within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So even we're still going to cases, right? We're just going to have the most cases in the next 2 weeks. So if you're looking at 4 weeks after any new cases, like if you're talking period after any new cases, we might not even start next year. We might be.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's like,
yeah, we might be to the end of the calendar year before we get back into the school year. Conversely, as a parent, not a teacher, I'm worried about my son going from 5th grade to middle school, and then what are we?
it's a big transition. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm gonna keep going to middle
That's
school.
a big step.
Yeah, so we'll see. I'd rather him be in class. I would be confident.
Sure.
I would be confident in myself and my wife to teach 80% of what he's learning. But I definitely have to call Mr. Uson if I needed a math lesson for a sixth. I can't do 6th grade math anymore, So
Yeah, right. It helps to be in a classroom. I get it. And it's hard though, right? I mean, I was listening to Dr. Fauci when he was talking, and one of his big concerns is to really let the pedal off when it comes to this isolation, right? And I believe he was mentioning in one of his interviews is that they saw in China when they started letting the gas off and letting the people start to be with each other again, they found another peak. And I would hate for that to happen to us here in
It's
America.
just going to keep extending, right? It's just going to keep extending. And instead of December, it might be like February or like March, right? So we just got to like take care of it now, basically, right?
Sure.
So we're
'Cause even Japan, right?
yeah, we're in a unique situation here where we can cut off travel. Federal government has to cut off travel. Travel cannot be cut off at the state level. We can't, as a state, say, "Hey, California, you can't send nobody here." You just can't do that. The travel has to be cut off at a federal level, right? So, people in the media or people online or whatever are blaming EA, but they can't blame EA because EA doesn't have the power to shut down.
Doesn't have to say it's the FAA. Yep.
Correct. When these people come in, I think we have to do more when they get to the airport to check on them. But we don't know what kind of power we have as far as civil rights is concerned. We don't know if we can get every person in and get every person checked. I think it's feasible now because we only have about 600 to 700 passengers coming in a day as 10,000 when this wasn't. So if we are checking everyone on the way in, that a lot of it. The asymptomatic people who aren't showing any signs or whatever, man, that'll be hard to regulate, and then it's hard to regulate as well. Someone to mandate.
It's supposed to be mandatory quarantine for everyone, right? Anybody coming in is supposed to be 14 days. What if we just transition what if we just transition all these so TSA, they kind of got it easy. I mean, I'm not saying their job is easy because they're still working, but they're not managing nearly as many passengers. So what if we transition those guys into enforcing the quarantines, right? Or ensuring that, they have a place or a hotel to stay in that's gonna, make sure that they stay in that damn hotel room, right?
Right.
I don't know. So I'm just thinking job wise, right? There's so many jobs being lost. Maybe this will open up jobs for people to actually enforce the quarantines.
Right.
Just transitioning things around. I don't know.
Yeah, I talked to a flight attendant when I was in line at Costco a couple weeks back. She considers America to be third world country when it comes to the airports compared to Asia. And she says in Japan, arrivals have to actually walk through what she describes as like this infrared
Right.
temperature check that's like on the walls.
Yes.
And she was like saying that, the people walk through this sensor, and when they are ill, they pull that person aside and then they talk to that person.
Mm.
Do you guys have any experience, maybe Mel, with that?
So the thing about that is, Americans are very uh, resistant to something like that. You can't do that to me. You're invading my privacy. People didn't even like the scanners that are in TSA now. Basic.
Mm.
And
Oh,
then
wow.
Because it shows your body size, right? Your body,
correct.
like
Yeah.
silhouette, right? Like,
Yes. So people don't know that. And then even when I mentioned to my students prior to leaving that when we come back, I'm going to temperature check everyone. I don't even have to touch someone to temperature check them. I told them as they walk through the door, I'm going to temp check them. And even those, "Oh, you can't do that though. I don't touch you. Yeah. So I mean,
Uh,
they're, and it's not only this generation, it's also the boomers as well. Then it's us, right? It's our Gen X guys that they're like, oh no, this is an invasion of my privacy. Well, you have to outweigh a greater good for privacy if you're thinking about something like that. But
and I
that,
think that's a big problem America's having right now, right?
absolutely,
Is
absolutely,
Asian countries, right? The Asian countries got it on lock. Look at South Korea. South Korea, they beat it basically, right? And they didn't have to quarantine people. They didn't have to do all these serious lockdowns. They're just basically like they work together, right?
yeah.
And I think it's because these Asian countries, they believe in like the greater good for everyone. Where in
Uh-huh.
America, we've kind of been brainwashed into this idea of like my personal freedom, my personal
right,
freedom.
absolutely,
I. And these Asian countries, they think about, oh, what about my neighbors? What about my family? What about my, the people around me? They're more worried about the people around them. Where in America, again, we're kind of force fed this idea of like, oh, I'm an individual, my individual rights, right? And so maybe that's something that has to change, and maybe that's something that is changing, right? Um,
Yeah, right.
but so I keep telling my wife that maybe this is gonna be like a big reset button for us, right? It's like we're really
oh,
gonna have to like,
that would be awesome, actually. So we're in a different situation here as well. 150 years ago, our island nation was taken, right? And it's taken by force. And then we went through 80 years of suppression where we couldn't speak our own language, we couldn't teach our own language, our people couldn't learn their own thing. And then now we're at this point where we're turning around as Hawaiians, right? We're turning around to this place where I'm going to be absolutely resistant to everything, right? So you have those people who are kind of assimilated, not kind of, but assimilated, and they're Americans. And then you have those people who have dissimilated, and they're absolutely resistant to anything that the government has to offer. So the government says, hey, we need to check your temperature at the airport. And then we have a bunch of people who are like, oh, that's the greatest thing ever. And then we have a bunch of people, including Native Hawaiians, who are going, you're not going to do anything more to me than you've already done because now you're infringing upon my rights to whatever,
Uh,
you know. So the resistance here is different as well. Um, you're gonna have different pockets of things everywhere, right? In the South, you're gonna have it differently, right? People are gonna be like, they're still kind of segregated to a point in thinking, right? They're still segregated in thinking, and they're gonna be like, well, you can't do this to me because my two-way rights, right? I have to be able to walk through the airport with my pistol on my hip. And then you have these guys who are like, yeah, well, my ancestors went through 300 years of slavery, and we've only been out of slavery since 1960. So they're gonna fight it. Everyone fights it in different ways, and I think, like you said, that's where we're heading as in America, right? If we go to
uh,
or if we go to South Korea, or if we go to even Malaysia, they're doing different things. And then no, what we can go to the extent of the Philippines, right? If you want to do what Duarte is doing, he's saying, "Hey, man,
I'll shoot anybody.
Well,
Yeah. I just kill you. I kill you. You know.
he never advocated shooting anyone for no reason. It was, if you're going to cause this civil unrest, which may cause riot, we are going to shoot you dead. Right? He said you can't do anything that will kind of exacerbate any. The system is set up so that if you want to cause problems or more problems than there already are, then they will shoot you. I mean, it's not, they're not going to just walk around and, hey, your temperature's at 8.9, you might have to swallow a bullet for us here. It's not that way. People are making it out like he's totally off his rocker, but he's not. He's trying to protect his country. They have like 1,500 cases. I mean, like cases that have been down 1,500 in the whole island nation of the Philippines, right? So in the whole PI, they have 1,500. That's
really good.
right. We are in Hawaii alone. Our
300 or something.
I think 400. I think we talked 400 yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we're at 400 with 1 million people, I don't know how many people the Philippines has.
Yeah, right.
That's Dr. Google right now, but
So I mean, there has to be like a balance, right? I mean, you got
right.
the two extremes, right? Where
Yeah.
you relax about personal freedoms and you're too strict about like, you know, in Wuhan, they were literally welding people into apartment buildings, right? I don't know if you guys saw those videos, but they're literally locking people into their buildings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like there was videos of them welding the doors shut so people couldn't
Wow.
leave the building.
Yeah.
It worked, right? I mean, it could have got real bad in China, and it didn't. So
Yeah, right.
then you have like Hawaii, where we're not really doing much, and I'm just a little
Yeah.
worried about it.
Yeah. So people are flying into the airport and they're like, hey, there's no one even checking anyone. Like, there's 20 people on the plane with me, and no one said anything to us from the plane gate all the way to the terminal out into the park. No one said anything. We're preaching a lot of stuff. We're preaching and we're preaching this, and we're not. I don't have, even as an employee of the airport, I don't have any power to do anything to anybody. But like you said, if you turn that the authority that some entity like the TSA has, turn that authority into checks or something like that. But again, it's getting people to buy into the fact that they have to do it. Just like we have to tell our students, you know, they don't have to do the work, but it'll help you, right? As opposed to, hey, you need to do this work because this is what you're getting. Yeah. So you have to turn it from option into a mandate. But then we're gonna have fighters. We're gonna have fighters the whole way. Yeah, I mean, I have probably 15 seniors that haven't even logged in, but they know they're not gonna be graded for it. You know, and there are not only my good students or not only my bad students, a whole mix of students seniors that are logging in and doing the work, which they know already they don't have to do, and they're still doing it because they're interested in the material. You know? So the students of mine that are going out and they're gonna try and get their ASC licensing so they can be actual mechanics. I already told them that my first announcement to my class was noticing how are still two genres of occupations that are working. Right? Teachers are still working and mechanics are still. Any mechanic in a building and on a truck, any mechanic in Lex Brody's, all those people are still working, and then teachers are still. Every teacher at every level is still working. So if people are out there worried about their jobs, I got let go from my job for this. I got let go from my job for not being there long enough or whatever. Mechanics are still working. So some of my students have kind of bought into that. The guys who are already planning to be mechanics, and they're still doing the work. Then I have a bunch of kids that they were always, hey, I'm just going to college. I'm only here to learn to change my oil, and I already know how to do that. So they just kind of tune out. But you got to do that with your citizenship as well. If you have people across the country that aren't buying into the fact that this is a big deal, then you're not going to get them to buy into the fact that they need to shelter at home or they need to be aware of whatever. I still have people on uh, some Facebook pages that I'm on. I still have people saying that uh, you need to catch it like chicken pox. You need to catch this like chicken pox because once everybody gets it, then everybody. It doesn't work that way.
No,
This is
no, no.
not. It's not an immunity built up that way. 19-year-old kid just died. That's rough because until now, that that child spectrum was untouched, and then that 22 to 25 area, those guys weren't expecting anything as well. The later college students were like, "Hey, I'm going to go to spring break anyway. This doesn't affect us." And then a 19-year-old in Colorado died. Yes, so
Wow, sad.
It's affecting everyone. Yep. But yeah, I mean, so I want to jump onto Mel's point was, let's say the flu, or not the flu, the virus itself is not as bad as it seems, which hopefully it tapers off, right? But the the effect it's having on the economy is as bad, maybe even at times worse, right? So like talking about job losses and whatnot, right? I think last thing I heard this morning was like 3.5 million jobs were lost last month alone, right? So yeah, I think like talking to the students about just what jobs are going to be available. You know, I've been telling my students for a while, like, do not go into retail. Don't think you're gonna get a good job in retail because retail is changing, right? But that was before all this happened, and now it's like, oh, there's a lot of jobs that maybe aren't that safe anymore, right? So I think that might have to be something that for next school year we gotta start talking to the kids about is like, okay, well, coronavirus kind of screwed up the economy. Uh, what job you want to go into now, right? And really think about what job is gonna be there. You know? I don't know what you guys
I'm
thoughts
really
on that.
surprised. Yeah, to go on that, I never thought that airlines would ever have something, like this. 9/11, people still continue to fly, but I've never seen the airport in all my life shut down the way it has.
yeah,
That's been crazy. And this is one of the reasons why I went into teaching because in 2008, when we hit the recession, I was in I was at Colina, right? I was
Oh
having the
yeah,
time
that's
of my life. I loved my job. I loved where I worked. It was so fun. And then I realized what a recession could do in that type of industry. And
a
it
good thing
was
you got
not
out, huh?
fun.
yeah,
What's that?
It's a good thing that you left Coolino because right now, whew,
yeah,
Yeah, man, there's
yeah,
just no
in
guest, right?
trouble.
And I mean, I'm sure Colina has enough cash for maybe a month, but then I'm sure they have to start letting people go because there's no way that they could pay their rent, pay their bills, and then take care of their employees. That's tough, man.
Yeah.
And thinking about that, like all the Disney, right? When we go back to the way life is, I mean, it's scary. I mean, like as much as I miss jujitsu, I'm scared to roll with people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
yeah. So you have to be able to trust those guys, right? So you have to be able to trust. If I run a business, I have to be able to trust everyone that's coming into, right? So I have to be able to trust that these guys are gonna tell me for sure that um, they haven't been out of the country in 14 days or contact with anyone that's out of the country in 14 days. And the fact that I work at an airlines is rough because these guys travel and we're passengers, right? So we travel for free. We go anywhere for free. A lot of these kids are kids. Yeah, I work with people that are young. My kids. My oldest son is 25. I work with people that are so they get in. They get 2 days off. They get in a plane and they hop to the closest places. The closest places right now, and the hubs for travel are LA and Seattle, which were two of the hot spots, right? So you go to LA or you go to Seattle, or you go to New York, right? And then the only things that these three places have in common are the they're the hubs for travel, for their big giant hubs of travel. New York is New York is about to be shut down as well, even more than they are now. LA went under
Too,
orders.
right? Thing too, Mel, is these kids are traveling to LA to Seattle, and it's not like they're social distancing. They're going to clubs, they're going to bars, they're drinking, they're probably like smoking weed, like passing,
Yeah,
their blunts around, right? Just passing all this virus
right,
around, right?
right,
And
right.
yeah, I can see
Have
the
you ever have you ever seen anyone sanitize a bong before they pass it?
Oh,
Right.
for real? Yeah, not at all.
If you're at a party and there's a bong going around, there's 100 different pairs of lips on that thing. That kept me from smoking. Period. When I was in college, that whole thing grosses me out. My son has never been to Chuck E. Cheese because that place is a cesspool. Right?
Right,
And
right.
don't just don't do those kind of things. The last thing my 10-year-old did, um, before we went on this thing, is that Nerf. You know that Nerf war zone in
Oh
Pro
yeah,
Ridge?
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
was we were super resistant to it, but it was right before spring break. It was nephew's birthday party. He just turned 5, so it was a big deal party for him. Then um, we let Michael go, and then as soon as he came home, he stripped down and he went right into the shower. He wasn't allowed to touch anything. I might have burnt his clothes or whatever. We didn't bring anything home. Like we didn't
Me
take
too.
anything. We didn't take anything from the party or anything. Everything stayed there. Um,
Yeah.
and I was in Pearl Ridge that day. It was a Sunday, the Sunday before spring break started. I was in Pearl Ridge, and I went into TJ Maxx over there, and it was busy, busy, like super busy. No one gave a crap about anything.
Mm.
People were there like it was spring break, which is what I mean. It was beginning of spring break, but it wasn't the beginning of spring break pandemic 2020,
Yeah,
right? They were just like, and I see a lot, and I'll say it a lot. I see a lot of military guys out. I live in Waihoa, right? And I go to Walmart to shop or whatever. The military kind of has a different take on this. They don't um, take it as seriously. I don't know if that's ingrained into their army mentality. The two fields here, right? Wheeler Army Airfield and Schofield Barracks are um, army. So I don't know if it's just the army mentality that they fight everything anyway. Um, I'd be curious to see how it is in Kaneohe, where the mentality is Marine mentality. That's different as well.
mm,
I don't know how many Marines you guys know, but Jed, you're in the service, right?
Yeah, Army National Guard.
Yeah. So those guys just have a different take on everything. They're still going. They're still cutting their hair. They don't have kind of the same take that we do. But at the same time, when I was in Pro Ridge, those guys didn't give a anything. Man, there were people in Pro Ridge. You know how if you go to Pro Ridge on the TJ Maxx side, you can hardly ever find parking. It was the
yeah,
same way
yeah.
that day. Now, if I would have went anywhere else, the parking is lightening up over there at Pro Ridge that day when my son went to that Nerf war thing. It was busy, busy. I parked far away. I dropped my son off at the front, and then I went and parked, and then I went um just to grab some stuff. Actually, this water bottle I'm drinking was from TJ Maxx that day, or blender bottle. It was like $2 or something. It was $2. So as I was waiting for my son, I was like, oh, I'll buy this new blender bottle for $2 because you go to anywhere else, Jamba Juice, that bottle is $10, right? So
Yeah, sure. $8, something like that. Yeah.
I stood in line over there. Bunch of people, no one's self distancing, no one's social distancing in there. It was
When
it
was
was
this now?
amazing. Sunday that spring break started. So
Oh, got it.
And
yeah,
I was see by that point I was already like I wear a bandana, around my face, like I triple it up and wear a bandana. So at that point, I was already wearing bandana, and people were looking at me like I was going to rob them. Like they were looking at me like, what the? But then now I just blend in, right? Everybody has face masks, but
Right.
back then everybody's just like, what the hell is this guy doing, man? Kind of like overreacting, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, I was worried, man. I was like freaking out, like, dude, especially because my wife, she was just about to give birth at that point. I'm like, I cannot be bringing nothing home to her, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's just funny how
Yeah.
slowly I think people are buying into it. But I think, like you said, Mel, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of pockets of people who still they're gonna keep spreading this thing around, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I take it serious.
It's funny because it's the people that are fighting among, right? So it's the Hawaiians fighting against the government. The government people need to do the Hawaiians that are fighting them, right? But about the same things. They're just different ends of the spectrum, right? And if I'm sure if you went into the South, it would be the same way. It would be the pockets of two-way freedom, and then the pockets of you held me in slavery for 300 years. Those guys, they would be the same way. Right? It's the middle ground people like us that are wearing our masks and wearing our goggles and washing our hands, and then it's the other people that are like, nah, this is some conspiracy theory. This is that's the one that gets me is that this is a conspiracy theory. I'm on a couple of Facebook pages from Kauai, and there are a lot of we'll call them hippies, right? There are a lot of pockets of hippies over there, and they're like, nah, this is just so that they can put up those 5G towers and nobody will notice.
5G blows my mind. What the hell?
Do these
Cannot
people
believe that's
realize?
5G conspiracy? Oh man, ridiculous.
Do you realize with
About 5G.
with 5G, someone can coach someone else surgery at real time, right? So I can be in Tokyo, and my
Can we
wife
do that now?
not with 4G. I can't even see you guys straight right now. We're on a 4G network, right? So look, I don't know how it looks when I move.
So,
Does it?
Okay.
Does it?
a little
Yeah,
lag.
so-
There's a little lag.
Yeah, there's a lag, right?
So with
Watchable,
5G,
though.
right? It's watchable. Would you trust your brain to a scalpel to a surgeon who's by somebody across the world in 4G?
Uh,
That's a rough one.
Perspective. 5G. Okay, 5G. I believe if you have a good connecting speed and your direct line with the tower, you can get up to 1 terabit per second download speeds. So literally, like, you know how you can download Netflix shows to your phone
yeah.
or Netflix movies? Downloading a Netflix movie to your phone would take you 2 seconds.
Right.
Not streaming it, downloading it to your phone.
Wow.
2 seconds to download.
Dang.
Stream would be instant. You know how you can like scroll around
Yeah,
in your
right,
video
right.
as you're streaming it? It'd just be instant. You know how sometimes it's like a little loading? No, it's just instant.
Wow.
That's 5G. 5G is amazing stuff.
You're
Amazing stuff.
saying like it has some health
They're
benefits?
worried about the
Something
they're worried about radiation levels, right? You're worried about radiation levels, but anyone that uses a cell phone, a laptop, a microwave, are getting more exposure to radiation levels than a 5G tower can.
No way, is that true?
It's the frequencies. That's why it's
Yeah.
a different frequency. The
So
only
if
the
you
only downside with 5G is it doesn't travel through walls as well as 4G. So like you kind of need a direct line of sight. So that's why they're putting up these towers like on like traffic lights and like street signs and stuff or street lights because like the better line of sight you have, the better connecting speed you have. Unlike 4G where it can travel through walls and stuff. But because it can't travel through walls, it's actually safer.
right,
The frequency is supposedly safer. You know?
because you're not
But
all the
people
time.
don't. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So when television first came out in the 60s, or first became popular in the 60s, that's what back then. People were worried that the television waves would come through your wall and kill you while you sleep. Um, but the television waves were no different than radio waves at the time, and radio waves have been killing people since the early 1900s. Is that what I mean? Our
So
life expectancy isn't any shorter now than it was. My
yeah,
grandfather lived
yeah,
to his 95. I
yeah,
expect to
yeah.
live till I'm 95. I don't know.
But yeah, I mean that conspiracy theory is just crazy. The 5G one. It's like really people
Yeah.
actually believe that? I think it's just like, people right now just got too much time in their hand, just trying to make waves, just trying to make like stories, like
Yeah.
and feel like they have some kind of control in the situation, some kind of
So
answer to it, right? But there's no.
later, I'll send you guys a link. It's a actually it looked newscast put out about 5G and about how 5G is killing people and how
Yeah,
all
yeah.
this stuff. And then you look through the newscast. Not that I'm a journalism major and I studied this for years, but when you look at the newscast, there's no signatures, there's no stamps, there's no anything. It's literally people that have pieced together broadcasts, right? Broadcasts that they've saved somehow, and then they just put these different broadcasts. Someone says something, someone says another thing, and then they lay it over with their own labels and their own things, and then people believe it because people believe anything on the internet right now. So
No
the
credentials behind it, right? Like these people have no credentials to say anything, right?
absolute credentials, right? So then you link one Bridget Namata, right? So somebody sees Bridget and they're like, oh yeah, I know Bridget. She's from KHON Hawaii News or whatever. Yeah, I met her in the airport or something. And then they go, yeah, Bridget said this, but Bridget didn't say it. Bridget's picture was on this thing. And then they overlay somebody else's voice over something that says something else.
Oh,
A lot of that going around.
horrible, man.
And then it doesn't help that um, the POTUS 45 says, hey, windmills are killing people all over.
Giving people
Windmills don't.
cancer. It's
So
just cancer.
right, so Trump goes on record, because everything is on record, and he says, yeah, we're putting up these windmills all over, and they're just killing people. I think, but people don't hear the "I think" part of Trump's speeches ever.
Oh,
They hear Trump say that hydrochloroquine is the save all for everything, and then these people are taking hydrochloroquine tablets because they think it's going to protect them from COVID-19, and
But remember, Mel, this is all a Democratic hoax. Remember,
it is.
COVID's
It
just a
is.
Democratic hoax, according to Trump, right? So,
According to Trump in January, according to Fox News in February, is all a hoax. But according to Fox News in April, they never said that. Neither did Trump. So it's funny that journalists that know at all times you're being recorded would say something like that. Absolutely opposite of what they said a month and a half ago, which is it's weird to me. It's weird to me that they would do that. That's the first thing of journalism. Make sure the name is spelled right and make sure you're telling the truth, right? I mean, they teach you that in class. Not that anyone needs to be taught to tell the truth and spell your name correctly, but yeah.
but yeah, it's crazy. It's getting crazy out there. Um, well, yeah. I mean, I know Jed, you got to go pretty soon.
it was
So,
fun. That was
For
fun.
sure.
We could do
and
this again.
yeah, we can do it again. I mean, shoot, we could do this every week.
Yep.
Just use this as our lessons, top story, current events, right?
Next
I'm sure
week,
there's gonna be more stuff next week. So.
next week we're
Yeah, right.
Do some solo drills together.
Uh,
By the way, did you
yeah.
guys hear about what Dana White's planning?
Yes.
UFC 249.
Yes.
no, I didn't hear it. What happened?
So there haven't been any UFC events, right?
Yeah.
What Dana White wants to do because every country has like their own quarantines. She
Okay.
wants to rent out a private island, all Enter the Dragon style, okay, or Mortal Kombat, and he's gonna rent out an island, a private island, and have the fighters fight on this island.
Really?
That's
In
what he's kind
front
of planning.
in front of a crowd? Not in front of a
No
crowd,
crowd.
huh?
No
Yeah,
crowd.
no crowd, no crowd.
Okay.
So my wife actually asked me about this prior to White coming out and saying he's gonna do this. So because you guys know my cousin fights, right? My cousin hasn't been fighting. He's not gonna. I don't think he is. Yeah, but he went on record is saying that he so his whole thing was, I'm not afraid of COVID, but my grandma is old, right?
Yeah.
So his grandma is my grandma's sister. Yeah? So my grandma passed. My grandma passed in 2004, and his grandma is the last surviving of. And
Oh,
she's super involved in the Waianae community. They do all kinds of things. Um, one of my cousins, his auntie, is she's involved in all kinds of things too. Her daughter does like theater and stuff, and she sings. She's a local entertainer. She's all over the place, but she's always geared up, masked up, and everything. But my auntie Cynthia, Max's grandma, she's in her late 80s. She's in she's I think she's born in 1936. She's in her late 80s now. Say Max goes to Singapore and then comes back and brings something to her, and then she doesn't make it through that. That's the kind of things that we worry about. Yeah.
yeah.
So that's a lot of the things that I see. Problems with the UFC thing is you have to bring everyone. You bring the whole camp in. You bring camp in isolated for the first 14 days. They got to train, and then are you going to stay isolated for a 90-day cap? I don't know if you can do that, because that's 105 days plus the fight day that you're going to stay away from your family and whatever. I don't know. I don't know if they can do that, but if you trust these people, just keep them there for the 14 days, then you can do that as well. It's going to be one if he does it, because there's going to be resistance from both ends.
Yeah.
Guys like Khabib that are from Russia, and Russia handles things differently. Yeah, you don't hear anything coming out of Russia.
Yeah, really.
Handles
Yeah.
things differently. So like Khabib, I wouldn't show up to that. No way. Because the way they're conditioned in a country like Russia, and then at the level that Khabib's at, regular Russian citizens aren't like that. But Khabib isn't a regular Russian citizen. And the way they take care of those people are way different. We've seen it in the 80s with a guy named Alexander Karelin, who was the guy for wrestling in. He was never ever a public figure. He was pretty much raised by the government because he was such a monster.
He's like a machine.
He was undefeated for 17 years in world, unscored on at 3 Olympics.
Oh wow.
But that's status in Russia. There was you never see a picture of Karelin walking down the street in Russia, and that's how as well. So Khabib won't show up, but you're gonna get guys from America. Everyone from America would show up. I almost guarantee it.
Yeah.
But in any case, nice talking to you guys, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good talk. I don't know. Yeah, we can plan for another one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Let's just talk
some
through
more topics to go over. But yeah, I think it was good.
Yeah, for sure.
fun to see you guys too.
So I'll go ahead and stop the recording. You guys be safe out there.
Yeah, take care.
Take it easy. All right, guys.
Again. See ya. Bye.
The recording now. All right. Take care, guys.
Take care.